Maria Davis, a goal-setting coach that has been helping students and teachers achieve their goals for years, and I'm here to help you do the same. I believe life isn't about chasing after what you want. It's about accessing the unique power that's already inside of you so you can step into the life of your wildest dreams. If you're looking to do life differently, live a life that's designed just for you, make your dreams a reality, and ditch the hustle, then you're in the right place. My goal for this podcast is to give you tools, resources, and tips to discover who you are at your most authentic level, help you get back in the driver's seat of your life, and send you love and encouragement along the way. Welcome to It's the Audacity for Me. Hello, welcome back. I am super excited about today's episode, my unconventional productivity hack. But before we get into that, I just want to give you guys a few updates. I just finished reading The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I think is how you say his name. It has been awesome, and it's something that took me a really long time to read, even though it's a really short book, because it just had so much good information that I had to keep stopping and reflecting, and just it was a lot to take in. And I think it's definitely a book that I'm going to reread. So I might do a more in-depth review of that book, but for now, just know that was amazing. And I apologize as I am trying to update things. Right now, it's just a season of change. And I think a lot of people are feeling this too, especially as we have the seasonal shifts. And change can be really difficult for people because it's uncomfortable and there can be fear, especially, if you're going into something unknown, something you've never done before, any of that. But I want you to keep in mind that fear isn't real. At least this is what I'm trying to keep in mind as the seasons change. And just a lot of things in my personal life right now are changing as far as, schedules and calendars and things to do and where I need to be and just all of that. And I think, like I said, I think it's like that for everyone. I mean, last year was kind of a crazy year. This year, we still have a lot of stuff going on. So I think a lot of people are still experiencing that uncertainty and just the changing. So just know that fear isn't real. Your success is inevitable. So fear isn't real because it's a future possibility, and it's only one of the future possibilities that you're looking at and getting anxious about and fearful. So when you eliminate that, you can be present in today and what you need to do today to help you. So also, when your success is inevitable, you just kind of switch from this fear-based fixed mindset more to a growth mindset of knowing that your success is inevitable. It's just taking the steps to get there. And knowing that change is a part of growth. If you don't have change, you can't have growth. So just keep all of those things in mind. If you're feeling like you are just all over the place, discombobulated, this month is, we're going to get it together. We're going to get back on track and reach our dreams, right? Awesome. All right. So now that we've had a little pep talk, let's get going with today's topic. Have you ever planned ahead for a busy, get stuff done type of day, only for that day to come and you're just completely exhausted and you're not feeling any of it? Or maybe it's the opposite. You planned a nice, relaxing self-care day at home, like laying in bed, watching Netflix, doing a face mask, all that. And then you're doing it and you're feeling antsy about all the stuff that you want to get done and, errands you want to run and stuff like that. Just like the seasons, we have ebbs and flows in our own personal energy levels. And it can be caused by a ton of different things. So, for instance, if you have a medical condition or something like that, that's definitely something you want to seek help from a doctor, not from me. But I will give you the example, just something that comes to mind for me personally. I have ADHD, so I have medication to help with the symptoms of my ADHD, but I have to make sure that I time it correctly so that way my sleep isn't disrupted. And, there's other things that go along with that too, and, my own personal energy ups and downs, but I digress. That's a topic for another day. Depending on where you live, you might experience seasons differently. In general, though, we have 4 seasons, and all of them are important to the ecosystem wherever you're located. So let's say you live in a climate where it's a wet and a dry season. it has to be that way for that climate, for that ecosystem to survive and thrive. And each season serves a purpose, regardless of what seasonal system we're operating from. Let's just go with the 4 seasons. Each season serves its purpose and each has its turn. There's no stopping this up and down cycle of nature. And also, the seasons, as they come and go, the plants and the animals and nature isn't concerned about when spring will come back or if spring is coming. They just trust and know that spring is around the corner because they're not bogged down by the thing that makes us human, the ability to think ahead and plan and really, do all these complex things that we do as humans. That's great and it makes us amazing, but sometimes that can get in the way of who we truly are in the balance. I'm not sure I understand. Oh, I'm sorry. My watch was recording me. That mentality, or that really great thing that we do about being able to plan ahead and thinking and all of that, can be a detriment because it can come in the way of our natural rhythm. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted by my watch, but I don't want to stop the episode and start all over. So here we are. All right. So like I was saying, each season serves a purpose. Each has its turn. So you can't try and stop the cycle. Things are always going to be moving forward, whether you want them to or not, both in nature and in your own life. And by working with this and by knowing this and acknowledging it and being aware of it, you can really maximize your efficiency and you can get more done and work less and enjoy your life and really enjoy the balance. So think about your school calendars, your seasons for different sports or activities, holidays, celebrations, even like females, you have your own cycle. We all have personal cycles. And by being able to use those and the cycles of nature, that's how we can really get the most of the energy that we have in a given day, week, month, year. All right. So with that being said, today's episode, I'm actually going to talk about one specific cycle. I'm going to talk about how I use the lunar cycle to plan ahead. I'm going to give a brief overview of the background of this method, as well as how I came to use it and easy ways that you could get started today. Now, I did debate on whether or not I wanted to do this episode. Ultimately, this is something that has worked for me and has helped me to reach my goals, and I created this podcast to help you be able to do the same. If it's not your cup of tea or it's not something that you're interested in, feel free to skip this episode. If you're like me and you hate not having that little check mark next to the episode, you can fast forward to the end, still get your check mark, and not have to listen if this is not something that you are interested in. I really won't be offended, I promise. I know it's not for everyone. But I really felt like I needed to share this episode with you because what kind of friend would I be if I held back on what's worked for me, something that's worked really well for me? So I do hope that you stick around because you can really use this in your life to make the most of the energy that you have in any given day. And if you're skeptical, like I was at first, I'm going to share a way to determine if it's something that you want to use in your own life. And it's actually it's what I used to decide if it would be right for me. And I used data. So I'll tell you how I did that in just a few minutes. But I want to tell you how I got started and just like a general overview of using the lunar cycle, using the moon cycle to plan your daily life. For the longest time, I struggled with planning because I really failed to account for my own personal energy up and downs. I love stickers and I love planners and I love lists and all the things, but I never seemed to really truly keep up with them. For the longest time, I could never predict when my energy would be high or low, or I would run into low energy days where I had a ton of stuff planned to get done and only that day to do them, or the opposite, high energy days where I had planned just a chill day at home. It was really, really frustrating, and I needed to find a way to make the most of the ups and downs of my energy and plan accordingly. So, me, the skeptical, kind of data-driven, science-backed person that I am, I started to track my moods and see if there was any type of pattern. And I did compare that with the lunar cycle that, lined up with those days and other astrological occurrences that were going on. And it's really where I started with trying this out and trying to use this to plan ahead. And what you can do to see if this is something that maybe would work for you, just start with tracking your moods. So go on Pinterest, you can find a million different mood trackers. You could just use a sticker or a color coding system, whatever floats your boat. But what you want to do is compare that information, compare your self reported data to the lunar cycles and the information that I'm going to share with you today. So over the month or the lunar cycle, but so you want to track your mood over, let's say, a month, like I said, or the lunar cycle, but for scientific purposes, it would be better to not have any clue what the phase of the moon is on a given day, because then it's not having an influence over you whatsoever. But either way, it gives you concrete data to show if your energy or your moods have generally lined up with the energy of the lunar cycle and the moon on a given day. So it's really something that can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. But why would you even want to do this? So we know that the moon controls the tides, and we also know that our bodies are made up of roughly 60% water. From a scientific or more analytical type of approach, this is a really vague correlation. And the science on how the moon impacts us as humans is mixed, to be fair. However, through tracking my own mood, I have found that I personally align, with my energy as far as any given day with the moon cycles in terms of just how I feel on any given day energetically, like whether I'm having a high energy day or a lower energy day. It's really been incredibly helpful to plan and predict the ups and downs. Although there is no scientific explanation for the impact of the moon on our emotions or behaviors, I did read an article from Scientific American that brought up a really good point regarding the historical context of this. And I'll make sure I link that in the show notes. The full moon may have had a real impact on our emotions and behavior prior to modern day artificial lighting. Because if you think about, before artificial lighting, when people really were living by the lunar cycles, especially, farmers and things like that. But when the moon was more full, they may have experienced interrupted sleep patterns because of that excess light in the evenings. You could also consider the myriad of other differences in daily life between the days of ancient Greek and Roman philosophers and scientists and astrologers of the modern world. There really are so many variables for each individual that it's hard to say definitively for every single person that the moon does or does not have an effect. Either way, people have used the lunar cycle for centuries to plan their lives. All around the world, throughout history, and into present day, people have both worshipped and celebrated the moon. Roughly every 28 days, the moon goes through a full lunar cycle, meaning it starts at a new moon where it's totally dark in the sky. Then it goes through the waxing stage until it reaches the full moon, and that's the peak where the moon is totally illuminated. Following the full moon is the waning period where the light from the moon and energy slowly wanes until a new moon is reached once again. Aside from the energetic aspects I'm about to get into, consider this. Even if the moon had no influence whatsoever on our emotions or our behaviors, being aware of the phases day to day helps you on a psychological level. Not only is it a practice of being present and staying in tune with the world around you, it also urges you to stop and reflect on how you're feeling. I really feel like the cycle alone is so poetic and just something that you could appreciate without going any further, but that would be silly to stop the episode here. We just went over the basics of the lunar cycle and just like the general timeline, but let's get more specific on what that means for you on an individual level. At this point, you might be wondering how you would even get started with this, and you may be feeling a little overwhelmed. Don't worry. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, this can be as simple or as complicated as you make it. There are a ton of different apps and resources and tools out there that make it a lot easier for you. You can use them to track the moon. There's apps for astrology, all kinds of things. I recently discovered and fell in love with the app CoStar. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I just really, really like it. I have an iPhone, so I'm not sure if it's available for Android, but if it is, definitely download it, regardless of your phone type. It gives you really personalized astrology that is accurate as far as I have compared with my own research. It helps you get a sense of the general vibe for the day and gives you an idea of everything you have going on astrologically, not just what's going on with the moon. I also use an app called Moon Phase that does exactly what it sounds like, tells me the moon phase. It's nothing too exciting, but I will definitely link both of those in the show notes so you can check them out. And they are both free. CoStar has a paid-ish version. I think you can choose how much you pay, but free has been just fine for me so far. These are some really good places to start. There is also a planner that I have. It doesn't have to be like the one that I have. I would highly recommend a planner of some sort, though. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a fancy moon-based planner, but the one that I have, I did find at Michael's, of all places, and I've really enjoyed it so far. It has given me like all kinds of stuff, all the astrological events that I'm interested in, daily moon, like monthly stuff, all that kind of, all that. But yeah, in the planner that I'm using, if you're not familiar with different things and like the meanings of stuff, you could get super bogged down by everything because astrology is a huge topic, and we're not even talking about astrology necessarily today. We're just talking about the moon, and that is part of astrology, but even just the moon and its cycles are just a massive topic alone. So we're not going to go super deep today, but my goal is to give you what you need so you can implement it now. So like I said, you could go really specific. You can get as complex or simple as you want. And the daily moon is great and something that I follow roughly, but again, it's a lot to keep track of in the day to day. So I mainly focus on the lunar cycle as a whole, which is what we'll talk about today and what I just kind of outlined earlier, the 28-day roughly phase. If there's enough interest, though, I am totally down to do a part 2 to explain how I incorporate astrological components as far as like the houses and zodiac with my planning. But for now, we'll just stick with the moon. But for real, if this is something you're interested in, please let me know because I would totally love to do this. All right. So each moon phase has its own specific energy, and it corresponds with what you see in the sky. So like I said, it's a time, the new moon where it starts is dark and the energy increases until it's fully illuminated, and then it decreases as it goes back to the new moon again. And a really, really, really good resource that I can't recommend enough is the book Moonology. It's by Yasmine Boland. I reference it at least weekly, and it was incredibly helpful when I really started to look at lunar phases and what that meant and how it impacted me and all of that. So definitely a great book. I highly recommend it. I will link it in the show notes. And I also want to say it's informed a good bit of what I'm going to be sharing about the different moon phases and the correspondences. So I want to make sure I link that in the show notes. So check that out if you are interested. So I'm not going to be like reading word for word from the book or anything, but like I said, it's something, this book is what really got me started and really where a lot of my foundational knowledge on this comes from. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right. So like I said, the new moon phase is where the moon is not illuminated in the sky. And this is where you are kind of putting your intention out there for the future. So this is where you don't have a ton of energy, right? Because you're coming out of that waning phase into, a new lunar cycle. So as you're coming into that new lunar cycle, this is when you really want to start to plan and visualize and just set your goals and intentions for that cycle. For me during this time, this is when I like to do my month ahead planning. This is when I'll kind of review my calendar, just kind of get everything in order, ready to go. Then from there, it goes into this waxing period, and you have a couple, I guess, benchmarks you could say in between the new moon and the full moon in this waxing period. So after the new moon, you have the waxing crescent moon. And this is when you really want to get a little bit more concrete about what you were visualizing and what you were thinking about and planning. So let's say you did your monthly plan in the new moon phase and just kind of mapped everything out. Well, during the waxing crescent, this is when you really want to get a little more specific. You want to keep moving forward, start taking action. And this is where you're going to kind of see the things that are going to move forward with you through the lunar cycle and then the things that are going to fall off. So if you really want to start working out, let's say you visualize that during the new moon. Well, during the waxing crescent, that's when it's going to be like, okay, well, what's the plan? Are we doing it? Are you, holding up your end of the bargain? Did you go to the gym when you said you were going to? Whatever. That's kind of the theme or the energy of that time. Then you have the first quarter moon. So this is when it's halfway illuminated. So it's halfway between the new moon and the full moon. And the first quarter moon phase is really where like the rubber hits the road, I guess you could say. This is where you really need to like double down, commit. You want to look at any issues that come up and take action on those and just kind of do what you need to do, make the adjustments that you need to make to keep moving forward on your goals. From there, between the first quarter moon and the full moon, you have the gibbous moon phase. And again, this is like a stay on course. You're coming to the end of this waxing cycle there because after this is the full moon. So this is where you want to stay on track. You want to make sure all your habits and routines and all the things that you've put in place, they're still good. Just kind of like revisit that stuff. It's still... your energy still hasn't peaked. This is still a time where you could schedule like creative tasks or social tasks or things where you're really putting yourself out there. Because after the full moon, that's when the energy starts to fade. So this is more high energy time between the new moon and the full moon. And it's all about whatever goal that you want to reach. It's taking action on that and prioritizing and all of that. All right. So then you get to the peak of your energy, which is the full moon phase. And this is kind of when you're going to see what's working, what's not. And it's the halfway point, throughout the cycle. It's the peak of the cycle. So at this point, you're hopefully seeing results on your goals. You're seeing the fruits of your labor. But at this point, it's kind of time to let go. You spend all this energy from the new moon to the full moon. That's when you're putting out all those high energy type of activities or tasks. So then the full moon is the peak of that. And that's where you want to look back at what you've done and kind of let it go. And I know letting it go is probably the hardest thing, but this is really where you want to forgive yourself for any mistakes that you've maybe made over the last 2-ish weeks. This is where you want to forgive others. You want to show gratitude. This is a really good time to, while you're reflecting on your dreams, think about how it's impacted other people too, and just kind of work on that sort of inner emotion type of stuff as you come down from that high energy. So like I said, full moon, peak of the energy, then you move to disseminating moon. And this is all about just kind of regrouping after you've spent all that energy. It's about just kind of taking the time to relax. Like I was saying, reflect. Just be okay with where you're at. Really get present. Really love yourself. Love those around you. Let go of what you need to let go of. And that brings us to the third quarter moon. So like I said, the first quarter moon is the halfway point between new moon and full moon. Third quarter is the halfway point between the full moon and then the next moon cycle where the new moon starts again. So the third quarter moon is a time where you're still coming down from that energy, right? It's a more low energy. You've regrouped, you've kind of evaluated, but now you're halfway between this phase of where you want to start something new and get your energy going again, but you're still in this low energy phase. So this is where you want to think about where you were and then think about where you're going and try and see where you need to make adjustments in your life. You could find some good journal prompts. This is a good time to really look inward and see, how you can improve, and also congratulate yourself and be proud of your successes as well. All right, so the third quarter moon, after the third quarter moon, that takes us to the balsamic moon, and that is just totally about letting go. This is the last phase before you hit the new moon cycle again, or the new cycle with the new moon. It's a lot of news. Sorry about that. But this is just the time to take bubble baths and get a massage and get back into whatever, spiritual practices that you might have. This is not a time to start something new. This is a time to give yourself grace and just let it go. It's a time to relax, a time to breathe. And that's what I try and plan on those later days in the moon cycle before the new moon has come, which is where we are at right now. We're in that waning phase. So that was a lot of information. I hope you don't feel overwhelmed. Today's episode was a really, really quick overview, just like a down and dirty 101, what you need to know right now of a super, super broad topic. But my goal was to be able to give you what you needed right now so you could get started. Just to summarize it, think of it like a mountain, like a stick figure type mountain, an upside down V, if you will. On the left, the side on the left, the line that goes to the peak, on the very bottom is the new moon, completely dark, and it goes through the waxing period of this building of energy up to the full moon at the peak, and that's that peak of energy. Then the moon wanes until it reaches a full moon once again, until it reaches a new moon once again. What you want to do is match your plans with your own cycle of energy, and you can even, like I said earlier, track your moods, track your energy, and use this, match your plans with the lunar cycle or however your energy falls, and create some magic in your life. And be sure to let me know how you're using the lunar cycle in your life. I would love to hear it. I would love to chat with you. And if you want to hear more of my unconventional planning tips, definitely be sure to let me know that too. Hit me up on social media. All my links are below. If we're not already connected, you can let me know about how you're using the lunar cycle in your life on there as well. Or you can leave a rating and review to help others find the show. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have the most beautiful day. Bye, friends. Thank you so much for pressing play today. If today's chat inspired the audacity in you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And be sure to leave a rating and review on iTunes to spread the love and help more people find the show. If you aren't already, be sure to follow me on social media so we can connect. Just choose your preferred platform. My links are all down below. Have a beautiful day, friends.